George, I'll start with you. I know this is your grandfather started this company, right? Many moons ago. To give us a little history of that, if you could.
Yeah, so I mean, Unimetal was formed actually in 2010, uh, but again, it was a formation of two metal finishers. One of them being my grandfather's company. He started in 1949, which was Quality Rolling and Deburring. And so
Mm,
we were primarily a cleaning and deburring uh, house with some electroplating capabilities. Um, but in 2010, I partnered with Patrick here to merge the two companies. He'll tell you a little bit about his company, but we merged and we called it rebranded under the name Unimetal, Unified Metal Finishers. And so Patrick brought to the table the electroplating component of metal finishing, and so it was a nice complement. We overlapped and we were competed maybe 15 to 20% of our business, so it was a nice fit. We maintained the two facilities, and we formed a pretty large company in the Northeast that still reigns today as one of the larger high volume shops in this area. Yeah.
background, and then the kind of the reasoning that you all decided to come together with that.
Yeah, my story tends to be just a little bit longer and a little bit of a different
Hmm.
trail. Nepotism got me here. Nepotism, when I was a 19, 20-year-old young man, I happened to marry a young lady whose dad was in the industry. His name was Bob Irwin, and he worked for a company called R.O. Hull in the day.
Hmm.
Okay. And his best friend owned a plating shop. I was in a position to want to go ahead and have an opportunity to go ahead and work. He said, I got a buddy of mine. It's a metal finishing industry. It's, a reasonable environment. Environmentally, it's is one of those things where it's kind of coming on as far as environmental revolution, and they needed some help, and I needed a job that had 60 hours a week worth of work. So I happened to work there for my father-in-law's best friend, David Niven. The name of the company was Donham Craft, and Donham
Hmm.
Craft was in existence since the early 60s, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And it was owned by three gentlemen, David, Walter, and Jerry. Long story short,
Hmm.
they focused on the metal finishing, electroplating applications. And I was with them for the 3 years. My father-in-law needed a sales guy down in Eastern Pennsylvania. He happened to hire me, and I ended up having a territory in Eastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, Maryland, Delaware for 10 years.
Hmm.
Had one of the better territories. So with that, I had the opportunity to become educated in the electroplating field and got to see a lot of other facilities and understand the differences between rack and barrel and reel to reel and the different processes. So fortunately for myself, my father-in-law became the vice president of the McGee and Rocco division, Rocco division of McGee and Rocco. I went back to Connecticut, became a regional manager, had a laboratory, 4 sales guys, 5 distributors, and my house account became the account I started with, which was Donham Craft.
Hmm.
Having being my house account, there was an opportunity for me to become involved with them, became a partner in the business, left McGee and Rocco 5 years later. So I spent 15 years with McGee, and I started my career back on that side of the business in 1982, and
Hmm.
actually bought the business from Mr. Niven in 2007,
Gotcha.
2008. And it was a few years later, 3 years after going through that 2008 recession period, that George and I had many discussions prior to that, and had the opportunity to merge the two companies together and rebranded it Unimetal at that point.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, all that you guys offer is a tremendous amount. I don't see that in a lot of facilities that do that. It's kind of like I said, kind of a one stop. You do a lot of things for people. Is that kind of the reasoning behind putting it all together as one? You kind of saw that's what some customers would wanted.
I think we were fortunate that it fell that way. And I think
Hmm.
up in this region, and George, jump in when you want. Up in this region, when we talk about we only overlap 15%, we shared a lot of the same customers. Okay,
Mm.
but we all have our specialties. Quality rolling and deburring had their specialties, cleaning, deburring, high volume nickel, high volume zinc. We had our specialties, which ended up being, zinc, nickel, copper, tin, gold, and silver. A lot of precious metals, smaller volumes. And so when we said we overlap by 15%, we're talking about we shared all the same customers, but it comes down to we don't get customers as much as we get customers' product part numbers. And so
Mm.
with that, we shared customers. They liked us both. And we each had our specialties, and so we were able to go ahead and carry that forward. So that was the primary reason for the blend.
Gotcha. And George, what benefit does that bring to customers? Bringing this together. What back then, like you said, 10 years ago, what benefit did it bring to those customers at the time?
Yeah, one-stop shopping. I mean, it was an intentional act to say, okay, let's get together because the best way to grow your business is with your current customer base. And so we had the same customers, and we knew that some of them needed cleaning, some of our cleaning customers needed plating. Maybe they weren't getting it from either of us, but we knew we had the opportunity to grow the business um, organically. And so I think that was the intentional part of it. The other part was there was a necessity on both ends that we were going to get additional support. Both employees technically, Pat is very, very technical when it comes to electroplating side. I was very technical on the cleaning and deburring side, and so both these together made a lot of sense. And so I
Right.
think offering that to our customers, one stop shop, even though the component that's missing there is heat treating. Um, we don't do heat treating, but we align ourselves with some local heat treaters where we say to the customer, okay, we can clean your parts, we can deburr them, we can get them heat treat them for you, and then we can plate them and send you one invoice. And I think
Right.
streamlining that for our customers, making life easier for them, I think was part of the strategy that we had internally that said this will really work for our customers.
hmm How was it in the beginning with that? I mean, when you merge two companies, you're bringing, and first of all, how many people do you have working for you now at that?
We have about 130 right
Okay. Yeah. So take back, did things go pretty much as you planned when you kind of put the company together with that way?
now. I would say yes. I said yeah.
Yeah.
I said we didn't. There weren't a lot of hiccups. It was easier because we kept the two facilities separate and kept them both open, and so it was business as usual. As the years went on, we kind of merged the accountings and the softwares and the other administrative duties that can happen when you do that. And so we did that, and I think I think it was seamless for our customers. Yeah.
Right.
It was truly an advantage. We had we had an automatic zinc line down in our Naugatuck location, automatic nickel line, and George already had that up here. So it gave us an opportunity to go ahead and not move the facilities, move some of the equipment, but move the customers there. And then we had an opportunity to go ahead and expand a particular area into like a mechanical zinc area. We got to open up a whole room that ended up being another, 8,000 square feet that allowed us to go ahead and venture off into other opportunities.
Right. Right. Patrick, you mentioned you're not so much interested in, you're not out trying to get customers, but the parts. Explain a little more of that to me. What you were talking about with that is that uh, what you were referencing with that.
Tim, you broke up at the very beginning of that
Okay.
sentence.
Sorry. Sorry. No, I was saying you mentioned about, you weren't so much about acquiring customers, but acquiring parts. And what did you mean by that? How did that work out for you that way?
Yeah. So, I guess when we talk about it, we talk about, you have large customers. A large customer of ours can have a dossier of, 40 parts, 100 parts.
Mm.
So it might be some things that end up being cleaning and deburring and they're done and go off to the customer. Other ones might just need, nickel plating or silver or gold plating even. So George wasn't doing the silvers or the golds, but maybe they needed a deburring application. So he might have had them for the cleaning and deburring side, and I had them as a different company from the plating sides. When they came together, all of a sudden you're back to that one-stop shop, and we maintained both parts of the business, and now we have it as the one customer.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. It's like I said, when you're bringing customers from both sides in, you're doing that. Is it, how easy to, scale up, ramp up with all that you're doing? Because it seems like you're doing things exponentially now, bringing a lot of different customers and a lot of different operations together. I mean, that seems like it went very well for you guys to kind of bring that. And I'm sure planning helped, right, to get it all. You're managing a larger operation and probably more customers now that you've got combined, right? Is that uh, how do you manage to do that when you put a company like that together? I guess.
I think obviously it takes very good planning.
Mhm.
So I think it was more of easier to say, okay, we're going to shut this down at this facility and move everything up to this facility because we had duplication of a lot of efforts in both facilities. So I think um, we all and we both had capacity at each facility. So wherever we decided we were going to do business for that particular finish, the capacity already existed.
Yeah.
And so if we had to scale up, we could scale up. Either we had the additional capacity from an equipment standpoint, or we had it from an hour standpoint. So again, I feel like there weren't too many nuances that we had to deal with when it came to um, trying to scale up quickly. And so I think it was seamless from the standpoint of the customers feeling anything but good about what had happened.
Right. So the plan worked. That's great to do that. But
Well,
last couple of years, how have things changed? I mean, like I said, I know that I've heard from a lot of other, finishers, other type of operations. A lot of customers want what you're doing for it, right? Is that they don't want to deal with a lot of different vendors. They would like to deal with one, and that seems to be you all's calling card that you're available to do that. And I know I think I saw a map on your site. You're really up and down the East Coast a lot. You've got a lot of people, a lot of area, not just local or regional there, but you're all over there with that, right? I mean, and it seems like that's what a lot of more manufacturers want, is somebody that can handle multiple facets of their operation that they need. It seems like that's something that has really uh, been your key then with that.
yeah, I think um, yeah, strength in numbers for sure helps with the business, the size, because I think when you're dealing with OEMs, they want to deal with stable companies that have some strength behind them, not only in the number of employees, but I think technically too. And so maybe, so if you're already existing with a certain supplier or a vendor and you have that, you're not going to be the one that's going to get cut out in a downsizing or elimination of vendors. And so I think, yeah, maybe customers don't want to take on new vendors, and I think they're probably reducing their base. But we've been lucky enough to say, okay, we haven't been part of that problem just yet. We're saying we've been boxed out because we're too small, or we don't have this, or we don't have that. And so that's been helpful. But again, business is constantly evolving, and we see it more since COVID. Whether it's the supply chain, materials, whether it's the fluctuation of the pricing in the market for the metals, uh, customer preferences. Um, you got the technology. It's just more than ever. And then throw on top of that is the employee,
Mm,
and
mm,
how they have felt through this whole COVID process that they have a lot more leverage, and
mm.
so wages, they're feeling that they have more leverage. We're dealing with a lot more than we've had to deal with in the past, and so it's moving a lot faster, and business is constantly evolving, and so you got to kind of stay ahead of it. And I think you have to be more vision of what you think your business is going to be like and what's the next step. More proactive than reactive in today's environment than we used to be. We used to be a lot more reactive, being much more proactive.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was gonna say, kind of lead to my question is that, 10 years ago, you guys had a plan, put it together. How in the last couple of years, I think you just answered it there, how, not so much with COVID, but how has it changed what customers are asking you all to do? Has there been much change than that of how they're, uh, you know, of how you all are doing, or have you been adding services or anything like that to kind of meet up to those demands that they're asking for? Or,
We have, a number of unique applications. One ends up being trimetal, miralloy, albeloy, whatever you want to say. So we end up being, one of, I'm going to say, a half a dozen people in the country that have a high volume capability in that. The other one ends up being, mechanical zinc. That wasn't new. That was something George had years ago as quality welding and deburring. We had it down as Donocraft. It made sense to expand that into one location. So now we're one of, again, probably a dozen mechanical zinc companies, in the country. We're not the biggest. Out in the Midwest, you have largers, but we're in that mid-sized mechanical zinc, and there's not a lot of competition in that area out here. And then, just being a specialty metal house that's also doing zinc, nickel, copper, and tin. When I say specialty metal, golds and silvers, those opportunities. I guess I'm going to pull back. The one thing that's unique about is our location. This is the Naugatuck Valley we live. Connecticut gets a bad rap just for being, its size, its politics very often, and the cost of living and what it takes to be out here. But the one thing about this region, if you go back into the early days, it was the brass capital of the world. And so everybody that basically started off with the Anaconda brasses and all the big brass, kings that were out there, over the years filtered off and ended up with their own small stamping facilities, metal finishing houses. So there are large, and then there are fairly small metal manufacturing applications. This valley is loaded with stamping houses, eyelet houses, things of that nature. In a short distance away, you have a lot of the spring manufacturers in the Bristol area. So call that the spring capital of the Northeast. So our ability needed to be diversified enough to handle springs as well as stampings, small to large. And that's what's made us, I'm going to say prosperous in this region, having a number of different applications that we can do, as well as the variety of the finishes.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you all are sort of in rare air. There's not too many people that really compete with what you're doing with that. It doesn't look like, nothing's going to pop up down the street or maybe 25 miles away that does exactly what you guys are doing, right? Which again puts a lot of pressure on you guys. I mean, you've got these customers who are really dependent upon you with that. How much of your work is really local, like you said, and then I know you guys do a lot of work outside the area, right? I mean,
I'd say 90% of our business is regional.
isn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So, it's the transportation aspect of it prevents it from being any more than that. So if to get outside that 90%, you have to have a niche. And so, there's always someone that can do something, right? But
Gotcha.
how well they do it is a different story.
Different story, right?
And so,
Right.
The barriers to entry to this business are great. There's not many metal finishers that are just deciding investors or that are just going to decide they're going to open up a metal finishing business. If they're getting in the business, they're buying a business.
Right.
So I think the industry is shrinking from that standpoint. You have a lot of baby boomers that are phasing out their business rather than selling it or handing it down to a generation. So I think we see, we don't have direct competitors in everything that we do, but we have competitors in cleaning, we have competitors in deburring, and we have competitors in electroplating locally. And so, what makes us so diverse is that if one industry is slow, we could pick it up in a different industry. If one finish is slow, we pick it up in another finish. So that's how we've been able to kind of sustain and survive and maintain our diversity when it comes to helping our customers.
Right. Yeah, surviving is good with that. Well, I mean, this part, where do you see growth? I mean, how do you guys plan to kind of grow if you want to? I mean, not necessarily grow physically but to maintain and more customers and things like that. Not to give your whole secret sauce away, but what are some of the plans that you all have, or do you have those? Is that on the horizon, or is it something that because you're still a relatively new company in that regard, right? 10 years can go by fast, but it's really not that long with that. But any plans for how you're adding services or anything? Although you guys have so much to offer people.
Yeah, I think when it comes to adding services and kind of this business, when your customers come to you and ask you that they have a program that is in a service you might not offer, we like to treat our customers like partners. So we call it a partnership instead of just a vendor supplier relationship. It's much more meaningful for us. And so if they say we're working on a project, just say we do 90% of their business and they get a project that we don't have that finish, but it's higher volume and it makes sense. They may come to us and say, hey, we have this opportunity. Can you quote it? And if they get it, then we'll make that. We'll obviously made that decision that, okay, we're gonna be able to do this and put this in and be an expert in it for you.
Right.
So that's kind of how, we see our relationship with our customers more as partnerships. And so we don't necessarily say we're just going to get into this finish or just get into this finish, because you got to have business for it, right? And so um, the way you're going to get business today is more or less if people are really gonna leave their vendor if it's not quality related. It's got to be on price, and so you have to remain competitive from that standpoint. But we're looking for new customers. That's our goal for 2024. Is obviously maintain the customers we have, continue to pursue growth within those customers, but also make a big push for new customers. And
Right.
that's
Right.
that's kind of our goal for 2024.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as technology's changed too, we're always looking to, what is new. I mean, it's not new anymore, but when zinc nickel was 10 or 15 years old, it's at least knowing it exists, knowing what it takes to go ahead and get it done. And when your customers come through and have a need or requirement, at least you're prepared to do that. The EV world's taking off right now, so you really got to be concerned about what's going on with the silvers and the tins and anything that carries current seems to be moving in that direction. Not that zincs are going away, but certainly there is less R&D going on with new motors, new transmissions. So and that happened to be a lot of what went on in this area. Small widgets, small components that went into those items.
Right. What industries do you find yourself in most these days? I guess automotive,
Historically,
aerospace, or
yeah, historically, for us, it's been automotive. But I think we've diversified enough that our growing field is medical. Um, we don't do a lot of aerospace and defense, although we love to see some growth in that area.
Yeah.
But we're in the electronics, communications, uh, school hardware, fasteners, automotive, medical. We pretty much touch every industry. I think we're still focused on automotive, although we're kind of diversifying out of that if we could, even though it's high volume. The margins are a lot smaller in that area, but we're still probably 50% automotive.
gotcha. Yeah. When you say medical, I've often scalpels or screws or equipment. I mean, what is the type of medical that you're doing? If you could.
Mostly disposable parts that go into devices. Um,
Gotcha.
Springs, pins, actually could be the tool itself, but a lot of it is, in the medical industry, one-time use. So
Gotcha.
it's repeatable business that's higher volume as well.
Right. It seems like this last couple of years, 5 years, let's just say, has been such a challenge, I think, to business owners like yourselves, where you may look at yourself as cleaners, deburrs, electroplaters, and then you've got these challenges of workforce, supply chain, regulation, and it really almost takes away a lot. You become more of a business owner type mentality than really, roll up your sleeves, get your hand dirty on your shop floor. How have you guys adapted that? Because, like I said, it seems like it gets tougher and tougher with all those. Like I said, keeping employees, retaining them, attracting them. Making sure supply chain, those type of issues. It's the last. I don't think I've, seen it as tough as it's been, or challenging, I should say, in the last 5 or 6 years. Have you, or have you guys adapted to some of that?
It's psychologist to our business card as well, right? I
Exactly.
think what becomes most important is culture in a business.
Hmm.
I think everybody wants to be inclusive, and everyone wants to feel appreciated in their roles in the business. So I think more importantly, we're focusing on employee engagement and creating a culture that's sustainable for long term, and including employees in feeling that they're a valuable part of the business. So we've increased wages, more employee engagement, participation in inside and outside of work, and then holding them to higher standards of uh, behavior. And I think
Right.
that's key when you have those elements, and it makes for a successful culture and creates an environment where they want to come to work, and that's what we're trying to build.
The
Right.
other thing that's been very helpful over the last, thing I say, 2, 3 years, it's a much bigger company, and it really takes experts in different areas to make this thing work. And so, George, we've done a wonderful job bringing on new HR, CFO, people that can actually give us better visions and understanding than we can as small independent business owners as we were years ago. It's nice to have people that have talents that make it easier to present things to you that help you move in the proper directions.
Right.
A lot
Yeah.
of, yeah. Typically in this business, as we grew up, my father, him, David, we wore a lot of hats, whether it was in finance, whether it was in HR. And so
Environmental.
as we went through COVID, it kind of felt like, all right, we need experts in each of these fields if we're going to sustain this for generations, and have an infrastructure in place where people are, and I hate to use this term, but people that are smarter than us, that are experts in their field, can provide more value to us, and then us knowing a lot about many things, if that makes sense.
Right, right. It lets you get back to your core of what you guys know best, right? Which is servicing customers and giving your expertise with that. And I know, like I said, when I kind of reached out to you, I know you guys had just recently won a local award from your community, which kind of is a feather in your cap that to be recognized like that way. Correct? I mean, it's got to be a nice honor to get.
Kind
Tell
of
us a
the
little bit
neat,
about that award. Yeah.
one of the unique things about this, I think, when we were independent, when George was Caldwell and deburring and Donocraft, it might have been 2004. George got this in the earlier days. The same award, and Donocraft at that point got it 2 years later, I think in 2006. So when they brought it to our attention again that we were awarded this, we said, "You guys sure that everybody's not going to be upset over the fact that it's happening again?" So no, you guys are. It's two different companies before, and it's one company now, and you're a different group,
Right.
which is true.
It's the local chamber, yeah, that have those awards. So yeah. So we both
Yeah.
won it. We both won it as separate companies. Now we've won it as Unimetal, and so it'll be a nice recognition. We're looking forward to that event coming up later this month.